Iman here from Design by Iman, and if you are in the market for a home and you've been shopping around, you've come to the right place because today in this video I'm going to talk about, from my point of view, how to select a home and how to see its true potential. So let's get started. So first up, I did want to talk a little bit about how to pick a home. And it's really based on the view of a designer, because when I'm looking at a home, I'm thinking about your floor plan, how your furniture layout is going to get affected, what's the overall feeling. So these are tips that are going to help you pick your ideal home. So first up, we're going to talk about the width of the home. So everyone has a budget, but here are some examples. So for example, here we have two homes that are both around 14 feet wide. I mean, that is pretty narrow, and you can just kind of see how it feels narrow in both spaces. They've really tried to create a staged look, and they've added some pillows and accessories, but no matter what you do, it is still a narrow home. In this home, we literally went just a few feet wider, and this was an example that I found on MLS, and this is about 2.5 feet wider than the previous homes. But you can see that the feeling of space is there, even though the decor is not necessarily any better. It just feels so much wider. We also have some more modern spaces that I found here. You can see that with wider homes, you can also create wider window spans, which allow more natural light. I know everyone is on a budget, but if you can go even just a couple feet wider, it really will make a difference. So next up, let's talk about walls. If you're moving into a home and you're planning to renovate and potentially take down those walls, you will want to check if they are load bearing. Let's look at some examples. So here we have a home where on the left you can see that everything highlighted in red can actually be removed. And so on the right we have a floor plan that is now more open concept. We've created an open concept rather than having an enclosed office. This makes the home feel so much larger. So prior to putting in your offer, you want to chat with your contractor, your engineer, your architect. Make sure that those walls can be removed, because that is exactly why you're buying the home, so that you can actually make the space feel larger. Next up, let's talk about ceiling height. So ceiling height is something that's permanent and that's really, really hard to change. Here on the left, we have an example of a ceiling height, and you can see that even though they put in a new kitchen, the ceiling height is only about 8 feet, and it really does feel like a smaller space. Here on the right, you can see that with just a few extra feet of ceiling space, it makes the space feel so much larger. And here's a few more examples of really modern spaces. On the left, we have one where you've just got a couple extra feet again, but again, you can go with larger windows. And on the right, if you're really fortunate to go with a double height ceiling, that would be the most ideal. So next up, I wanted to talk about the direction of the home. Now with this, there are so many opinions. I have spoken to so many clients that have different cultural backgrounds. Some need to face east, some need to face west, some prefer south or southeast. Very few prefer backing north, but everyone has an opinion about this. I will tell you my opinion, which I prefer that the main living space be backing south. So for example, if the back of your house is facing south, that would be the most ideal. I also like southeast and southwest, but in general, I prefer a south view. The reason why I prefer a south view is, as an example, here you can see in this image that this main living area backs actually north. And you can see that even though it's a beautiful space, there's just not a ton of light coming in. In this next photo, this is actually backing south, and you can see that the place is just flooded with light. So the reason I prefer a southerly direction is because ultimately the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but it goes in a southerly direction. So you are getting light all throughout the day. So next up, let's talk about stairs. So in these examples here, both of these staircases are not only narrow, but the steps are actually shorter. So narrow stairs in interiors, honestly, they're really hard to change. And it really does make the place feel a little bit more claustrophobic. In these examples, although both new, they're both wider staircases, and they really do give the illusion of more space. Wider staircases are not only more comfortable to walk up, but they do give a feeling of grandeur and of luxury. Now, if you are buying an older home, if you can try to get an older home with a wider staircase, that would be ideal. If you do have a narrow staircase, then maybe just keep in mind that that's something that you might want to change out. So next up, I wanted to talk about items that really you want to pay attention to if you want to move right into your home and you're not planning to do any renovations. First up, let's talk about floors. So in the example on the left, you really have a nice space, but the floor is just awful. You can see that it's already starting to crack and warp. I think they've tried to stain it, but it really just does not do the place justice. And the floors on the right, you can see are scratched up, very dated. They definitely look like they need replacing. In these examples, you have a brand new floor. You have very, very wide planks that are also long, and both colors are great. It just depends on what type of design that you're going for. Ideally, what you want to look for is a wider plank and a longer plank. So in these examples, both of these are great color choices for floors, but you can see that the floors are also new. If you're moving into a space that's not quite new, you still want to look for as wide of a plank as possible and as long of a plank as possible. That is kind of where the trend is going. Having said that, on this slide here, they do have a narrow plank on the left, but you can tell that it's been done in a way that is stacked, so it actually feels like even with a narrow plank, it was done for the purposes of the design in that entry. Another great option is going with a chevron or herringbone floor. Oftentimes you're not going to find this ready-made in a house, but if you do, that's a bonus. Floors can get really expensive to change out, so if you are hoping to move into the space without renovating, you want to make sure that that floor is durable, that the material is still good, it's not cracking or warping. You want to look for durable materials, wider planks, longer lengths, and hopefully the right color choice for your design palette. Next up, let's talk about kitchens. Here is an example that I pulled from MLS. This kitchen here, although the colors are half decent, the layout just really does not work. The kitchen looks like it was half finished or not well planned with the fridge sticking out. It really does not make for a good use of space. Next up, we have this kitchen here, which is quite dated at this stage. So even though the appliances are nice, you would really have to change out this kitchen. It really doesn't coordinate with the floors, and the layout of the kitchen with the cooktop in the corner is not ideal as well. So what you want to look for are some examples like this. Kitchens that are newer. Now they might not be as new as these ones here, but you still want to look for functioning kitchens. Maybe it's a matter of changing out a backsplash or maybe changing out some lighting, but overall you're trying to look for lots of storage, integrated appliances, and a good color palette so you don't have to change it out. And here are some examples of some more modern, stylish kitchens where you can see that there has been some thought put into organization and color schemes. Kitchens are really the heart of the home and the center of the home. And if you're planning to move into a home without changing the kitchen, you definitely want to make sure that it fits all your needs. Next up, let's talk about hardware. So here on the left, we have an example of a kitchen where you can see that the hardware is just something super basic, probably from your local hardware store or maybe even IKEA. Whereas on the right, you can see that the pulls are longer, they're done in a satin brass, and they really do add a lot to the home. Here on the left, you have a basic round knob, whereas on the right, you've got a round rosette with a square top. And you can tell that the one on the right is more expensive and a little bit more luxurious. You can also compare door handles. So when you're looking at your swing doors, a lot of people are now changing out their door hardware to lever style handles rather than knobs. The one on the left is about half of the price compared to the one on the right. So even though they're both lever style, you can tell that the one on the right is a little bit more modern and it's also more expensive. Here are some good examples of some hardware that you want to look for. You can look for a lever style handle on the left, which is done in a matte black. The one on the right is actually a knob style, but you can see that the quality of the knob is actually really nice and it's done in a satin brass. Although hardware is a very small detail, that small detail really does change the look of the home. So you do want to pay attention to this when you are shopping around. Next up, let's talk about bathrooms. Here is an example of a bathroom where you can see that it has been done on the cheap. Even though it's all new finishes, you can tell that not much effort has been put in. So on the left, they did a basic shower curtain. On the right, you can see that this is a store-bought vanity with a very basic faucet and basic mirror. You want to go for more of a custom look. And here's an example that I found that they actually put in a little bit more effort and did a custom glass. They went with matte black finishes. They also did an LED mirror. On the right, you can see that they've also included a bench. So these are some items that you want to look out for when you are looking for bathrooms. So these are some items that you want to look out for when you are looking at bathroom details. So the more detailed it is, chances are the more money they've spent on that bathroom. Next up, we have lighting. So lighting does really make for a big part of the home, and I wanted to show you some examples to look out for. So first up here on the left, we have an example of a main floor, and you can see that they have gone ahead and spent the money on pot lights. So a lot of lighting is important. They also have positionings for a dining room light as well as another light at the back of the house. And here's another example of a home where, again, they've spent the money on the pot lights as well as wall sconces, as well as pendants over the island. And if you really get lucky, you might find a home like this one here, which has floating shelving with LED lighting, or you might find something like this where it's an LED light on a linear track integrated right into the ceiling. So whether you're buying a home that you're planning to renovate or one that you're buying to move right into, some of these tips will be really helpful, so be sure to apply them the next time you go see a house. And if you like this video, please feel free to share it with a friend. Don't forget to like and comment below. And if you do want to work with me, I will leave my information below, and we'll see you on the next video.